Hello and welcome. Many of us have been taught to see life as a zero-sum game, where for one person to win, another must lose. This perspective creates an atmosphere of competition and scarcity, as if every gain must come at someone else's expense. But what if this picture of reality is incomplete? What if you could move toward your own goals, not by competing with others, but by working in a way that allows their goals and yours to move forward together? This is the essence of frailing, one of the more subtle yet powerful concepts in Vadim Zeland's reality transurfing. Frailing shifts the focus away from pushing your own importance and desires, and toward recognizing and aligning with the interests of those around you. It is not about sacrifice or giving up what matters to you. It is about creating harmony between paths, so that your movement forward also supports the movement of others. When applied in this way, frailing removes unnecessary resistance, and life begins to flow in your favor with far greater ease. Most of the time, when someone tries to achieve something, whether it's a personal goal, a relationship, or a career advancement, the focus tends to rest almost entirely on the self. What you want, what you need, what you hope to get. And although it may seem logical to center attention in this way, reality transurfing proposes that this is one of the main reasons why people encounter resistance. When you're overly focused on yourself, on wanting and needing, the tension you create is mirrored back as obstacles and delays. This is the hallmark of what Zeeland calls inner intention, the forceful drive to bend reality to your will through effort, insistence, and control. You can quite easily see how this dynamic plays out in your interactions with other people. When your attention is centered on your own desires or on getting your point across, the other person has no reason to be interested in what you have to say, because they, just like you, are focused on their own needs and goals. Two conflicting streams of inner intention often result in mutual disinterest or resistance. Communication turns into a subtle power struggle, even if it's dressed in polite language. Frailing offers a way out of this friction. Instead of using inner intention to try and pull others into your world, it invites you to step into theirs. It begins with a simple question: what does the other person want? What matters to them? What do they value or fear? What are they hoping for, avoiding, or trying to express? And how can your goal be presented in a way that supports them, rather than being perceived as a threat or as irrelevant to their world? Awareness is a key word here. For frailing to work, it's not enough to just know what the other person wants. You need to become aware of your own default impulses. That means taking a step back from your automatic tendency to push for what you want or to prove your point. Most of this effort is on autopilot, while a moment's reflection would show that it will likely not lead to the desired results. So instead of acting from that unconscious momentum, you begin to pause and observe. You ask quiet, deliberate questions with the intention of finding a path that allows all concerned parties to move forward without conflict. This kind of conscious attention creates room for something deeper to guide the interaction. You're no longer locked into the reflex of inner intention. You're engaging with the situation from a more open position. And in that openness, the tension begins to dissolve. When your focus is no longer clouded by urgency or self-importance, outer intention can begin to move. It doesn't require effort. It only requires space. In that space, something larger becomes possible. Life stops feeling like a clash of separate, competing wills and begins to reveal itself as a coordinated field where events and relationships move together rather than against each other. Outer intention is, in other words, not a pushing force. It is the state where reality begins to cooperate without strain. It moves in your favor, not because you forced it to, but because you aligned with the natural flow. When you place your attention on someone else's world, you remove the inner pressure that normally creates resistance. The field around you settles, and outer intention begins to carry both you and the other person in a shared direction. This principle becomes especially useful in relationships, and this is also a very useful example where most people have memories of experiences that show how this works. When someone wants to be loved, the common instinct is to try to get that love by asking for it, earning it, proving oneself worthy of it. But from the transurfing perspective, this creates internal importance. And wherever importance accumulates, balancing forces enter to neutralize it. The result is often the opposite of what was intended. The more you try to get love, the less naturally it flows. Frailing flips this approach. Instead of seeking love, you give it. You focus on the other person's world, their rhythm, their preferences, their fears. Not to diminish yourself, but because doing so lets you enter their frequency. The paradox is that once you stop trying to extract love and instead start expressing it freely, the mirror of reality shifts. The reflection softens. People feel safe, and love comes back without you having to chase it. This reveals something deeper. Frailing aligns with the understanding that the foundation of reality is not control or separation, but connection, and at the root of that connection is love. Each moment offers a choice between openness and contraction, between trust and fear. When you choose openness, even in small ways, you allow yourself to move in harmony with the deeper fabric of life. And in that alignment, what you give returns, not because you demanded it, but because you became part of a flow that supports everyone involved. The same dynamic plays out in professional settings. Imagine you are trying to convince someone to hire you, or to approve a project, or to buy what you are offering. Most people go in trying to convince, persuade, or sell. This puts the attention on you and your needs. But frailing means stepping into the shoes of the other person. What do they care about? What problems are they trying to solve? What are they afraid might go wrong? What would make their life easier? You then present your offer not as something you want them to accept, but as something that fits effortlessly into their solution space. This mindset creates an entirely different energetic field around your communication. You are no longer clashing against their sense of agency. You are working with it. You are not denying yourself. You are integrating your goals into a broader system of harmony. It's important to understand that it is not accidental that you get these different results, depending on whether you are using frailing or not. This is a pattern for how life works, and you will find more examples of it the more you look. It is, in general, important to start looking at the human experience from this perspective. Not as a series of random events in a meaningless universe where everything can be reduced to atoms colliding, but as a meaningful, coherent whole with patterns and structures that are usually hidden to most people, but which can be uncovered by the one who has eyes to see. Now, it's important to clearly separate frailing from becoming passive, submissive, or self-erasing. It's not about giving up your goals or pretending to care about someone else's goals just to get what you want. If you do that, the reflection of reality will still catch your real intentions. Being honest with yourself and others is key for this to work. Frailing asks you to genuinely tune into the frequency of another person, to care, even if just momentarily, about their well-being, to see them not as an obstacle or a tool, but as a co-creator in the unfolding of events. You don't need to know everything about the person in front of you to use frailing. Sometimes, simply holding the intention to respect their space, to listen rather than dominate, and to offer instead of demand, is enough to shift the dynamic. The change begins with attention, not strategy. What's initially needed is to interrupt the automatic momentum of your usual reactions, to step back from habit and see that you are not locked into one way of being. There is space between impulse and response, and in that space, you can choose how you engage. In conversation, this might mean asking more than telling. In conflict, it might mean acknowledging the other person's viewpoint before stating your own. In negotiation, it might mean framing your offer in a way that highlights shared benefit. In each case, the shift is subtle but significant. You're no longer trying to win the moment. You're allowing the moment to reorganize itself around connection rather than control. You'll notice that frailing becomes easier the less you are trapped in internal importance. If your self-worth or peace of mind depends entirely on a certain outcome, your energy becomes rigid, grasping. But when you release that grip, when you trust that your goals are achievable, even if you don't push, frailing becomes natural. You're not trying to control anyone. You're simply listening more deeply, aligning more intelligently, and allowing the world to work with you rather than against you. Zeeland compares this to tuning in to a radio station. Every person is transmitting on their own frequency. If you broadcast on your own frequency without adjusting, they won't hear you. But if you tune in to their station first, you create a shared resonance. And once that resonance is established, you can introduce your message within it. Not from the outside, but from within the vibration they are already in. This is where real influence happens, not as pressure, but as coherence. This also clarifies the connection between frailing and the term frail in transurfing. Your frail is your own unique energetic signature, the frequency you naturally emit into the world. Frailing, then, is the conscious act of adjusting that frequency to find harmony with the one in front of you. It's not about losing yourself or imitating someone else, but about momentarily stepping into their rhythm so that communication, movement, and collaboration become possible. When you meet someone within their own frequency band, you lower resistance and make space for connection by tuning. This is why frailing works. It brings your inner state into resonance with what is already present, which reality can then reflect without distortion. At first, you need to practice frailing with intention. It won't come automatically because the habit of focusing on yourself runs deep. So you begin by noticing. You remind yourself to ask open questions rather than defaulting to explanations or advice. You pause before responding, especially when you feel the urge to correct, defend, or steer the conversation toward your own priorities. You pay closer attention to the other person's tone, body language, or even what they're not saying, clues that point to what matters to them beneath the surface. These small acts of awareness begin to shift the interaction, not by force, but by presence. Over time, this becomes less effortful and more intuitive, because living life in this manner is more natural once faulty programming is removed. You start to sense when your energy has become too self-directed, when you're speaking just to be heard or acting out of subtle neediness. You also begin to notice when someone else retreats, disconnects, or grows tense, not because of anything explicit, but because they don't feel seen or met. And instead of tightening your grip, you soften your approach. You don't do this to gain approval or manipulate an outcome. You do it because you've begun to understand the terrain. You're not trying to dominate the moment. You're learning to surf the wave that's already rising. In summary, frailing is a way of meeting reality on its own terms. It begins with attention and ends in alignment. By shifting the focus away from self-centered striving and into resonance with the people and situations around you, you stop pushing against life and start moving with it. This doesn't mean giving up your goals. It means learning how to let them unfold through coherence rather than control. The world responds not just to what you do, but to how you hold your energy. When you meet others on their frequency, resistance fades and communication deepens. As you practice, you begin to see that this principle applies far beyond conversations and decisions. It reflects something built into the structure of reality itself. Frailing allows you to participate in that structure more consciously, more skillfully, and more compassionately. Start by shifting your attention. In any interaction, pause and ask, What does this person care about right now? What would ease their path? Then speak or act from that awareness, not to get something or to sacrifice your own wishes and desires, but to create resonance. Remember that the view that life is a zero-sum game is an illusion. Offer instead of demand. Listen instead of control. And watch how reality begins to respond in kind. As touched on at the beginning, one of the core ideas in reality transurfing and in many other teachings on esoteric subjects is that the world reflects your relationship to it. When you try to force reality to bend to your will, you create turbulence. But when you move in alignment with what is already present, the path begins to open. What once felt rigid or stuck begins to respond, not because you pushed harder, but because you stopped resisting. Notice what happens when you stop pushing and start aligning, when you stop needing and start offering, when you stop trying to be heard and instead begin to truly listen. Again, frailing is not about turning yourself into a doormat. It is not about giving in or giving up. Properly understood, it is strength of a higher order. It is to move with life in power instead of struggling against it using force. It takes far more awareness to listen than to demand. It takes discipline to remain open when your habits tell you to close. And it takes maturity to choose harmony over ego when it matters most. But the reward is unmistakable. Resistance falls away. Doors open. Conversations shift. And what once seemed impossible starts to move toward you, often without effort and without warning. You are not giving up control. You are gaining influence, not over others, but over the mirror of reality itself. All that you are giving up is fruitless struggles, falseness, pretense, and faulty programming. Because when you stop broadcasting from a place of internal noise, you begin to hear what life is whispering back. And in that whisper, there is guidance and clarity. Finally, it's important to emphasize that this is not about judging yourself when you fall into old patterns. We've all been conditioned to rely on force, approval, and inner importance to navigate the world. Frailing invites a different script, but it must begin with meeting yourself where you are. Each moment offers that chance. And each time you choose presence over pressure, you tune a little more closely to the reality you actually want to live in. If you found this video helpful, you'll find a playlist of other reality transurfing videos on the end screen right now, along with playlists exploring the work of David R. Hawkins and Joe Dispenza. Each of them, in their own way, offers insights that can deepen your understanding of the principles we've explored here. You've now reached the end of the video. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for your time.